All right, so what we're going to talk about today, our objective is to understand where the slope-intercept form comes from. I'm going to rewrite that. Of a linear equation comes from. Okay, that's one. Number two, we're going to transform equations into slope-intercept form. So we've already been practicing that piece. And then three, let's see, we're going to take slope and y-intercept, or no, I don't like that word take. Let's use the word identify. How about that? That's a better word. Because we're not taking anything. We're identifying. So identify slope and y-intercept of a linear equation. Okay. So the first one, hopefully through that explore activity, you have an understanding of where it came from. So given a slope number, given a y-intercept, from there we used the slope formula, and we were able to come up with the slope-intercept form without really knowing what we were doing. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of recap that real briefly. So we were given a slope. I'm going to just use the same information we had on our explore activity of 2 and y-intercept of 3. And we're going to take that y-intercept, we're going to rewrite it as an ordered pair. And then we're going to use the formula for slope, y equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1, x sub 2 minus x sub 1. Now, we're given a second ordered pair, so we decided we were going to use just generic xy as our ordered pair. So we're going to also have this ordered pair, we'll just call them xy. Okay. Now, something just to share with you, I'm almost done with your statistics tests, and a lot of them turned out amazingly well. My concern is how you guys started doing your work. Like, for example, standard deviation, I noticed that people were figuring out the mean of the original data over to the far right of the piece of paper. And then on the far left of the piece of paper, they were figuring out the differences between the original numbers and the mean. And that made no sense to me because you needed to know the mean, which was on the right side, in order to do what you put on the left side. So we need to work on this thing called organization, that we're Americans, and being Americans, we speak and write English, and English goes from the left to the right. So for some reason, it seems like a lot of you have gone back to some Jewish roots, and you're starting on the right and working toward the left. So we kind of need to come back to America and go from the left to the right, okay? And the reason why I bring this up is because I saw it repeatedly. Like 80% of you start your work on the far right of the paper, leaving a big blank spot, and then go back with that data and work on the left side. Makes no sense to me. I'm a little confused trying to find your work sometimes. And by the way, square root of 4 is 2. You don't need to estimate what its value is. You only estimate if you need to. Okay, believe me, I saw a lot of people say, well, it's between 1 and 4. Square root of 1 is 1, square root of 4 is 2. And then they were trying to estimate. I'm like, dude, it is already 2. You didn't need to do anything beyond that. So reason why you get directions like round to the nearest tenth, if necessary, means that that's a generic set of directions. You may, if necessary, is not necessary all the time, okay? All right. So going on from here, we know that the slope is 2. We have our first ordered pair is going to be that x and y. So I'm going to put them in the front. Shh. The second ordered pair is going to be our y-intercept. So the y was a 3 and the x was a 0. So taking away the color now, we've got 2 equals y minus 3 over x. And then we said, let's go ahead and multiply both sides by x. And then this is another thing you can do too, is if you are running out of room, you just draw an arrow, and you start back up at the top in the next sort of column that you create. And we get 2x equals y minus 3. And then to get y completely alone, we solve by adding 3 to both sides. And we end up with 2x plus 3 equals y. Okay. And the identifying ingredient here is that the 2 was the slope that they gave me originally, and the 3 was the y-intercept that they gave me originally. So we would never write slope-intercept form that way. We would write it this way. Y equals 2x plus 3. So this is the reason why I was telling you before when we were doing our coming up with ordered pairs, is that we wanted to always put the x term right after the equals. That's the customary way of writing slope-intercept form. So this is slope-intercept form. Y alone on the left, the x term right after the equals, the number that's in front of the x term is the slope, and then the number that comes after, the constant that comes after the x term is the y-intercept. So I'm going to go on to the next page. When you guys are ready. All right. So in general, we have to have a y in our, let me change that. We have to have a y in our equation. Our slope is going to be represented by m. And then it's attached to the x. And then we're going to write plus. Now, by the way, you could have minus there. It depends on the sign of your y-intercept. And then we're going to throw in this guy. And the reason why we throw in b, I can't put the letter y there because I'm already using the letter y. So you're going to see the y is your, or the b value is the y-intercept. And again, the m is the slope. So today we're just going to work on making sure we can get the equation into slope-intercept form, grab out the 2 key pieces of information. Tomorrow I'm going to share with you how you're going to graph using this form, okay? So we've already understood how to get the x and y, how we can solve this, how we get it. So I'm not going to go step by step because we just kind of did it in general as we went through that example. So let's do a couple practice problems. Generically, you're going to hear directions like this. Find the slope and y-intercept of each equation. So we're going to give you this problem, 4x plus 5y equals 7. Now this looks differently than the explore activity we did. So what would be the first step in getting it into slope-intercept form? What's going to be the first step? I'm going to talk to people who don't talk to me very much. Kayla, what would be the first step? Remember, what is your goal? Okay, so how am I going to get y alone? Very good. We're going to subtract 4x from both sides. Now notice that 4x and 7 are not like terms, so I can't do any math with them. So I'm left with 5y on the left, and then always putting the x term after the equals, minus 4x plus 7. Okay? Anna, do I have y by itself? No. What do I need to do to get it completely alone?
Divide by 5.
Yep, I'm going to divide. And when I divide, I got to treat everybody the same, that equality. So I'm going to divide everything by that 5. So I get y equals negative 4/5 x plus 7/5. Now, the directions just didn't say write it in slope-intercept form. It told us to find the slope and y-intercept. So we're using the slope-intercept form to help us find those two key pieces of information. So, Charlie, what's the slope?
4/5.
Careful. Anything that's between the equals and the x is the slope.
Oh, negative 4.
You got to include the sign. And when I'm writing a negative for a slope that, or any value that's a fraction, I'm always going to put the negative in the numerator because then I'm going to see it. I could put it opposite the fraction bar, but I see people's negative sign next to their fraction bar so close it looks like one massively long fraction bar. Okay, so that's first of the two key pieces of information. Where does my line cross the y-axis? What is the y-intercept? Bastian. What's the board say? What are you looking for?
B equals
Okay, so what's the b in this problem?
y-intercept.
Okay, and what is it in this particular problem? I'm looking for a number here, pal.
7/5.
Yes, and notice that there is a positive in front of the 7/5, so then that's why he just said 7/5. Now, if I wanted to, I could go one step further and I could write it as an ordered pair. Delaney, how would I write the y-intercept, this y-intercept, as an ordered pair?
5, 7.
Where'd 5 sevens come from? Think about, visualize a line crossing the y-axis. Think of the coordinates of that particular point where your line crosses the y-axis. What value does the x-coordinate have? You can draw a picture of it on your paper. That's always how I visualize. I'm not a good in-your-header. I got to write it down and look at it. What would the coordinate of the, what would the x-coordinate be of that y-intercept? Very good. We get a 0. And what is the y-coordinate of that y-intercept going to be?
7/5.
You got it, 7/5. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of looking at it again, okay? And that's all we do. So the b value is the same as y-intercept. We don't call them y because we already have a y in that equation. All right, you guys ready to try one on your own? Yeah. By the way, what form are these equations written in that you've seen so far? These are standard form. Oops. Okay, how about it? Okay, so let's see. I heard some interesting answers. Let's double check your math to see how well you did. Subtracting 2x from both sides. That's early celebration. 3y equals negative 2x plus 6. Oh my gosh. Divide by 3. And I get y equals negative 2/3 x. I pull out the coefficient in front. And I always take fractions and reduce them to lowest terms. And 6 divided by 3 is 2. So my identifying values, slope is in front of the x. Shh. Y-intercept is after the x. Notice that the only thing never included in those two ideas is the x. So x is like the brick wall. Whatever's in front is slope. Whatever's behind is going to be your y-intercept, and that includes signs. So if you wrote slope as an ordered pair, because I saw Patrick do that, you would have written 0, 2. Okay? So close. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, and not in math problems, though, I'm afraid. Okay? Do we need to do one more? Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm going to give you one more, but I'm going to give it to you not in standard form and see if that makes a problem or not. Oops. I know, because I am that kind of gal. So let's see, we've got 4x equals 9y plus 7. So remember what our goal is. What's our goal? Y on the left. Okay, so suggestions how we might start this particular problem since it's all messed up. Ian?
9y plus 7 equals 4x.
So you want to use symmetric property and rewrite it as 9y plus 7 equals 4x. Okay, that's a great start. All right, what would I do next? Melinda? I'm not going to just subtract 7 from 4x. I'm going to subtract it from both sides. That's the key phrase we need to remember. So then that gives me 9y equals 4x minus 7. Always put the x term right after the equals. Okay, let's see. Next, Alex. That's what I'm asking. What do I do next? Actually, I divide everything by 9, including the 9y. If I only divide 2 things instead of all 3 things, then I haven't done this math problem fairly. So then I get y equals 4/9 x minus 7/9. Okay? So let's identify. Ashlyn, what's the slope of this particular equation? 4 over 9. Thank you for not saying x. Okay, and then we need to figure out what the y-intercept is. Tristan.
Negative 7 over 9.
Excellent. You didn't drop off the negative, which a lot of people want to do. Okay, remember, everything after the x, including sign, is going to be your y-intercept. And again, if we decided to write him as an ordered pair, he would for the y-intercept it would be 0, negative 7/9. Okay, now I'm going to show you one more thing that may show up on your homework tonight. I think it does. And that changes your directions. And the directions would be write an equation. Given slope and y-intercept. Okay, so write an equation. Let me rewrite that E. Given slope and y-intercept. And we're going to write it so that you'll hear the word express in slope-intercept form. Now, just to let you know, when we do quizzes and tests, we'll often ask you to write your answers multiple ways. So you may be asked to write things in slope-intercept form or standard form or other forms that we teach you about. So you may see fewer questions on the tests we take on this material because you're going to do multiple things to that particular problem, okay? This quiz maybe be a little bit more straightforward. All right, so let's have, what if I just tell you slope is 3, y-intercept is negative 2. So again, what you're going to keep in mind is what does that generic slope-intercept form look like? And that's the one that has only the variables. So y equals mx plus b. So who thinks they know the answer without me saying another word? Zip my lips. Okay, ooh, several of you do. Okay, growing numbers, growing numbers. Okay, Aiden, what do you think the answer is?
Y equals 3x plus 2, negative 2.
And I'm going to say you're so close, but not quite there. Maddie.
Y equals 3x minus 2.
That's what I'm looking for. Y equals 3x minus 2. We're never going to use double signs. The sign of your y-intercept becomes the sign between the two terms. So all we're going to do is take 3, put it into the m place, and we're going to take negative 2, put it into the b place, and we're going to make sure we don't use double signs. So we get y equals 3x minus 2. And that's all that we would do on this problem. Okay? That would be it. So you're going to see a couple problems that are like that on your homework tonight. All right, so this is actually the easy, this is the warming you up, and tomorrow we're going to actually graph. And